Good. Got 1, 2, test 1.
This falls under the category of back by popular demand. In its second annual iteration, the 2-year-old webinar where we discuss all of the babies before baby season really gets rolling is about to commence. And we're letting a few extra people get on the line here. We're also expecting Jason Blewett to be a part of the action today. The ground rules are pretty simple. We're going to be zipping through every single 2-year-old, either that we bought this year or that we bought last year and is now a 2-year-old, as we preview the upcoming, and let's face it, the impending 2-year-old season. We've already had our first 2-year-old winner in Keep It Easy at Churchill Downs. We have our very first Saratoga 2-year-old entered with moments notice, and we're expecting Cajun Gold as a potential first day starter as a 2-year-old at Del Mar. So time is of the essence. It's the right time, and never let it be said that we don't listen to our partners. You're so impactful. A couple of partners were like, hey, you know that thing you guys did last year with the 2-year-olds? Can you do that again? So Marty Ragosa, this is for you and several other people that chimed in. Still waiting, as I said, for Jason, so we'll try to get him rolling here. But in the meantime, welcome to Tom Bellhouse. Oh, there's Jason. And to Joe Bianca, to myself. We've also got a few of our team members sort of in hiding in the back, working the backroom information. But in the meantime, welcome to our West Point Thoroughbreds second annual 2-year-old webinar. And we're going to zip through this, as I said, and then leave it open for questions as we go along. As we begin, we're just going to go trainer by trainer. So we're going to start off with the Tom Morley crew. There's a couple of horses to talk to you all about, and we'll start with the Jimmy Creed Moon Vision, who is now named Creed's Vision, Tom Bellhouse. I believe that's the horse that we're talking about out of the OBS April sale.
It is Creed's Vision, and he's been with Tom a few weeks now. He went 38 and change yesterday, a breeze 3 furlongs, and we're ready to go a half. And as you can see, there's a lot to him. He's carrying a little bit extra weight, and that's something we're going to melt off. But he's very athletic, and his breezes all have been very, very nice so far. So all systems go up to a half mile with Creed's Vision.
You think he makes the meet, the Saratoga meet?
Last book, maybe.
See how important.
See how the next month goes.
Very good. On to Kyla's Cause. This is a filly by Daredevil that we bought at the Saratoga New York bred sale last summer. Kyla's Cause has been with Tom Morley for a little while. She's a speedball.
Yeah, I mean, we bought this filly last fall at the New York bred sale with Joe and Pat Veazey and Mike Lydon, and this filly is his average. Now, this to your question, yes, I do think she'll be in the second half of the meet. She's been training extremely forward, just really a delightful. And, we've had some luck with Daredevil, and I think that you can expect second half of Saratoga for Kyla's Cause.
All good. We're done with Tom Morley for the time being. We'll move on to Todd Pletcher, a couple of horses to talk about here. That's where we bring in our friend Jason Blewett. And Jason, this is the nature of 2-year-olds. They're going to have their forward, moves. They're going to have some setbacks, and that's what we're talking about with Apalta. Todd Pletcher has slowed down on this horse in particular.
Yeah, this horse needed a little bit of time, was in Saratoga maybe a week and a half. This was back late May, early June, right before the Belmont. In terms of first impressions, though, and that's a barn that when they give you the thumbs up, 99.9% of the time, they're correct just in terms of gauging talent. Todd really likes this horse, as does the team. And even assistant trainer Tristan Barry told me last summer, maybe you've heard of these horses, Mindframe and Antiquarian. They got to Saratoga. They were in town for 2 weeks, and they sent them home because they weren't ready. And it's worked out pretty good with both of them.
And Jason, they really are all about sort of like, okay, we're going to send them pretty far back, meaning to Bruce Jackson. We're not just going to dink around with them. We're going to take that break that's necessary.
Absolutely. And Todd even pulled me aside. We went out to dinner the night of the Belmont Stakes, and he said, I saw there were really, I saw the vet report with Apalta. I want him to stay at Bruce Jackson's. I really like the horse, but he said, you guys have to go slow with him. Otherwise, this isn't gonna work. So let's just build him back basically from the beginning. And look, we want him to have a long and great career, not just go 5.5 furlongs on the first Saturday in August.
Gotcha. On to the Mischief colt, the big one from the Keeneland September yearling sale out of the mare Nonna Mia. We're teamed up with Team Rapoli. Some setbacks here, a setback that was a bummer, but gosh, it's so much better to have things that might go awry now than further on down the line. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And they caught it early. Todd had mentioned to me after he gave us the news, he said, had we just gone ahead and breezed him another time, we might have had a real big problem and an injury potentially, or an issue where a potentially top horse like him might not ever recover fully from. So they caught it early. He's already, I mean, he had surgery. He's already down with Dr. Eisenman in Ocala, Florida. He'll stay down there. And I told Todd, we'll see you in early December at Gulfstream Park. But again, much like Apalta, got 2 thumbs up with, I know he cost $1 gazillion and he's got a world-class pedigree, but still it's nice when you get sort of the 2 thumbs up. But both our horses that were with Todd earlier this summer, both really gave an outstanding first impression.
Perfect. On to Steve Asmussen horses. We'll begin with Anne's Girl. She's a gun runner filly that we bought as a yearling last year. And Joe Bianca, this filly showed plenty, and we decided to send her all the way through the Asmussen program, even the training center. They like her.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of a little bit of an experiment for us. So we had never sent the horse down to Laredo to be brought up the way some of the Ron Winchell horses are with Steve Asmussen. And she looks great. She had an ankle chip, so she's had a little bit of time off. She's going to start back in early August, it looks like. Obviously, the gun runner fillies are just through the roof. You look no further than Vava, the queen of the stable right now. And this filly is beautiful, has a lot of scope. Had to back off her like a little bit, like we said, but we have high hopes for her down the line. And we've done some research over time that shows that Steve does really well with horses long-term who debut in the fall. So I think, as we get into the fall, you're going to start to see those horses who end up being in the classic races 3, 4 later on.
Perfect. Candy Ride Magic Star doesn't have a name yet, still down on the farm. A project, time. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, he's been a little bit slow to come around. He's still building up conditioning down at Eisenman, but obviously, as you can see, he's a handsome horse. He looks a lot like that gun runner type of Candy Ride. Candy Ride can throw a lot of different looking horses. He has that gun runner look. He's bred to be a rock star. Candy Ride out of a graded stakes winning Scat Daddy mare. So all the pieces are there. Some of these horses got to take your time with, and some of them come around a little later than others.
It was a little bit of a surprise when we bought the Vekoma filly in the first sale, and she was discovered to have a little bit of an issue with her pelvis. She had a fracture. She had some surgery. She started hand walking recently, but gosh, the Vekomas are off to such an amazing start. I think she's going to be worth the wait. Correct, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's got speed. She seemed to have precocity. It was a little unfortunate coming out of the sale with that issue, but we're taking our time. She just started hand walking after getting about 90 days or so of stall rest. And yeah, like you said, the Vekomas, he's the top right now for first crop sires. He's got 10 winners. So he's number 1. Obviously, we all loved him on the racetrack. So I think that she will be worth the wait.
Yeah, and Steve's got a Vekoma filly going into Schuylerville on Thursday. So another of those Vekomas that's just emerging rather quickly here. On to Pride's Prince. And Joe, what a powerhouse this horse is.
He's freaking amazing. Like, I talk to Eddie every week, and Eddie over the winter was like, he doesn't need to get any bigger or stronger. He doesn't need to get any bigger or stronger, because he just was ahead of his time in terms of the development, but he's really evened out. He looks gorgeous. He had a surgery for a fracture on his pole. It was just kind of a freak accident in the stall where he fractured a small bone in his head. He's 100% recovered now. Just got back on the work tab last week. Looked great. So he's probably 1 or 2 works away from shipping up to Steven. As you can see, he's just stunning to look at.
That's exciting stuff. We'll finish off, and I'll talk a bit about Yinzer, who's been up at Keeneland training until they gave him a little bit of a time off or a little slowdown session. They believe that he could be a superstar. He was the expensive twirling candy colt we bought at the Saratoga sale last summer. He's taller. He's a leggier type, but super fast, and was going to be precocious. Steve had described him as a top shelf prospect. And again, like Anne's Girl, we did the research, and Aaron Birkenauer is the person responsible for this. And it really did show that Steve's best Oaks and Derby types tend to be those fall debuters. That's where we're going to see Yinzer, and that's exciting stuff. On to Shug McGahee. Let's start with the with the testicle subject, Langdon. Jason, you want to touch that touchy subject?
Not really, but for the sake of being thorough, I will here. So yeah, we bought this this colt by a stern named Langdon out of the OBS April sale. Turns out he had an undescended testicle. They shipped the horse to Fairhill. It was clear something was bothering him and he was very uncomfortable. So we sent him back to Dr. Eisenman's. He is now a Ridgeling, got the procedure taken care of. In terms of just first impressions, I will say when Christina and I stopped at Fairhill a month and change ago on our way from Florida to Saratoga, one of the guys that got on Langdon for just a couple of mornings, I mean, he was there for like 2 days before they sent him back to Florida. He asked me, and it was kind of cute. He's like, do you think you guys will send back that Astern colt to us? And I said, yeah, I promise we will. Because he's like, I really, really liked him. And I love this horse too. I'm excited to have him back with Shug at the end of the summer.
I would suspect that we'll see him in the fall, kind of an aqueduct type of horse. Wouldn't you think, Jason?
Yeah, for sure. Maybe a race or two up in the Big Apple, or who knows, maybe Churchill Downs over the fall, and then we'll enjoy him all next winter down at Gulfstream. And whether he's dirt or turf, I look forward to enjoying his 3-year-old season about a year from now in Saratoga.
I saw some of your posts on Chatter. I saw some of the posts on Chatter, and I think you're responsible for them. The Shug Brigade has come north, and that means the Quality Road, March Express, Sansone, and Statesman. You can touch on each one of them, but you're the guy who's in touch with Shug most often, so feel free to cover this how you will.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all three are exciting prospects, and again, all three of them have been sound and healthy. To me, that is the biggest battle this time of year. I mean, again, you're going to have, especially with a group of horses or 2-year-olds the size of our class, it's inevitable you're going to have some issues pop up, and that's fine. I mean, that's just the reality of this thing, that you're going to have to give some horses a time. But all three of them thus far, and they spent probably a month and a half or so, maybe a little longer than that, 2 months at Fairhill. They've all been that slow, like steady trend line up, which is good. And Shug brings them along very slow. So someone asked me the other day, they're like, oh, what do you think? What do you think of the babies that Shug has at Fairhill? And I said, to be honest, I mean, all three have beautiful physicals, beautiful pedigrees, but just Shug's program, it's still a little too early to really, really gauge. But I mean, clearly Sansone looks like a stallion prospect. He's big, strong. That's a look at Statesman right there. He's a horse that I think might wind up being a turf horse for as smooth, almost smooth as silk, the way he worked on the Tapit, the all-weather track at Fairhill. And then the Quality Road March Express is cut from a very similar cloth to Sansone, another, big scopy stallion prospect, hopefully by Quality Road. So there's a lot to be excited about with the three of them. And of course, Langdon waiting in the wings with Uncle Shug.
All right, Uncle Shug is covered now. We'll move on to Michael McCarthy, who we branched out a little bit. He's got horses on the West Coast and in the Midwest, but these are two horses on the West Coast from the yearling crop last year. First is Brummell, who's a not this time colt. He's going to be a 2-turn grass type, according to Mike. We had a nice conversation at Churchill Downs maybe about a week or so ago, and he really believes that's where this horse is going to end up. He has really settled down because he was a tough guy on the farm. I think Jason especially can can give some attribution to that. But he's really settled down. They've really taken the tough guy out, given the competitive spirit, plenty of room to grow. And he's doing well. He's scheduled to debut on July the 27th at Del Mar, going a mile. As I said, 2 turns on the grass, really what they think that is going to be his forte, as they say. Moving on to Bullard. This is a gun runner colt with Mike McCarthy, also on the West Coast. He spiked a temp maybe several weeks ago, and Mike at that point was like, look, I'm not going to press on with him. He hasn't had a breeze since mid-June. I'm not going to push on him. I don't want to, that's how you really kind of can ruin some young horses, because they will get sick from time to time. Spike the temp, backing off, slowing down, really the fall for him. And as a gun runner, exciting prospect. Moving on to a horse who's already started for us. We'll get the Mark Cassie Tapit brigade, as it were. Sandman had a debut with a lot of a lot of expectation, anticipation, and there were some really good things that came out of it, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. It was funny. We were talking about this on our internal horse call. He did basically the opposite of what I expected. I expected him to kind of be off his feet a little bit early and come running late. He showed big time speed, flattened out a little bit in the lane. I think that that's going to be an attribute that's going to serve him well over time because he's bred to go longer. He's bred to get better as he gets older. So now that we know that he has that early foot, I think that's a really good feather in his cap. And yeah, with a $1.2 million horse, obviously the expectations are going to be high, but we're not looking to win in June. We're looking to win next May. And I think that I know the Cassie barn is really still high on him.
Very much so. And I think he will ship to Saratoga at some point here, Joe. I just don't know when. Talked to the assistant maybe a couple of days ago, and they're just waiting for the go ahead from Mark to send him up to Saratoga at some point. And then Volt, the other Tapit.
Right.
Feel free to expound on him.
Yeah, so he didn't cost quite as much, but is obviously still a beautiful horse out of a really nice mare in My Wandy's Girl, who's a multiple graded stakes winner. He's had a little bit of some issue with his foot. He had a foot abscess. He was a little ouchy, so Mark has been pretty cautious with him. But the times he has breezed, he's looked good. He's looked professional, and he's probably not that far away from shipping up to Saratoga. As long as that foot is clear, he'll probably breeze one more time and then head up north.
Perfect. Two beautiful grays. Obviously, Tapits can come in all sorts of colors, but when they look like that, man, they're extra special. Moving on to John Sadler. We'll go with Cajun Gold, who came out of the first OBS sale, the March sale. We gave more than $200,000 for a beautiful son of Cajun Breeze. And speaking of breezes, he breezed over the weekend. He had sort of a, so-so breeze the weekend prior where he didn't really finish up at the end. They breezed him in company. He was better. I wouldn't say that they were like just blown away, but he was better over the weekend. He maybe in Juan Leyva and John Sadler's eyes, maybe seems to have plateaued a bit on the breeze work. So it's time to run. They believe that they're still on target for that race on the 20th of July, opening day, Del Mar, 2-year-old race going short. Cajun Gold has done a lot of good things up to this point. So we're hoping to just get him going and see where he stands. Christel Clean, this is a filly that we bought at the Fasig-Tipton yearling sale out there in Pomona in the fall. She's currently at the farm. She showed us plenty of talent, a lot of precociousness, and really that early ability. Then she had a freak accident where she flipped over. She had a crack in her pelvis, little hairline fracture that set her back. And so she's up at Legacy right now, but will come back in the fall. Miles Finch is a beautiful moving colt by Vronsky that we bought at that same Fasig-Tipton yearling sale out in Pomona this past fall. I believe he might make the tail end of Del Mar. He's a horse I think is going to be fabulous going longer distances, but he's such a smart horse and such a beautiful moving horse that if he doesn't have any more, he had some warm shins recently that forced them to kind of slow down a bit. But if he gets over that, he seems to be over it now. John has gushed about how great a mover he is, and I think that we'll try to get him into the starting gate by the end of the Del Mar summer meet, which ends on September the 8th. So that is Miles Finch, Christel Clean, and Cajun Gold, all the John Sadler 2-year-olds. And now we'll move on to Ivory and Ebony. This is our spun to run filly with Dallas Stewart. The thing that has really, really impressed and surprised me is that she's speedier than I thought she'd be. I mean, because she's super, super tall, just a very big, substantial filly. And, you watch him breeze an 1/8 of a mile or 1/4 of a mile at the 2-year-old in training sales. And then you say to yourself, well, but physically they're this, so they're probably not going to be this. Well, I thought because she was so tall, leggy, scopy, that she would not be as zippy as she is, but she has been. And she's progressed quickly, despite the inclination on Dallas Stewart's part to go slow. She's got a good mind. She's been working in company with a horse that Paul McGee, a 2-year-old filly with Paul McGee that came up exactly the same time. They've been working together. Ivory and Ebony has been getting better and better and beyond their filly, Paul McGee's filly, who they like. So I think there's a lot of nifty anticipation, and I would suspect that she'll get started maybe at the Ellis meet sometime in August. I know Dallas would prefer to start her in the September meet back at Churchill Downs, but we'll see. We'll see. She's one that may just tap him on the shoulder and say, I'm ready to go. On to Dale Romans, and we have a colt by Good Magic out of the mare Money or Love that we bought at the Fasig-Tipton May sale. near Baltimore. And Joe Bianca, he's going to start back in a couple of weeks, but this was a horse that had so much athletic ability, and just we had to take a little ankle chip out of him.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he was a total steal at the sale, especially with the success that you're seeing Good Magic have. He stands for 6 figures now, fresh off having another Triple Crown race winner. He's also got a lot of talent on the dam side. World of Trouble is under the second dam. Bucaro, really fast horses who stuck around and won a lot of races. So to me, he was an absolute steal. I think at 130 is what we paid for him. You know, we did have that little ankle flake that we cleaned up, and he's going to start back just in a couple of weeks here at Doc Iseman's place. He's an absolute powerhouse, really well built, beautiful horse, and I love the pedigree and can't wait for him to get going.
He's an exciting colt. Can't wait to see him up with Dale. Probably towards the end of the summer, early fall would be when I would suspect he will arrive. Keep it easy. He's the star thus far because he's done it. He's won impressively and broken his maiden, and will be moving on to the Saratoga Special. I believe it's August the 10th. Yeah, August the 10th at Saratoga. Keep it easy. This is a colt by Hardspun. We bought as a yearling. Dale thought he was a freak all along. I know he was a little bit disappointed that he didn't run tremendously well, though he had a rail trip that was problematic in that first start. But in very typical Dale style, that meant not win first time out, but second time, whoosh. Keep it easy. Keep your eye on him. He could be one of the superstars of this class. On to Maui Strong. This is our kitten's joy. He'll probably head to Saratoga, where he can train more regularly on the turf this summer. Not sure when. Dale was trying to sort all of that out. He's very talented. He's a clone of Kitten's Joy, who, of course, Dale trained and looked specifically at this colt when we bought him at the Saratoga yearling sale last summer and said, I want him. So I would expect to see him up at Saratoga at some point, training on the Oklahoma turf track and the main track as well, too. Exciting prospect, Maui Strong, who I think has a chance to make the end of the summer meet there. One of those 2-turn races on the turf would be my guess. And then finally, actually, no, I'm sorry, take it back. We've got 2 more with Dale Romans. The Promise is Fulfilled, hot fun colt that we bought in the first sale. He's working this week, I believe, for Eddie Woods. And then I suspect will be called up to the big leagues. And this is exciting stuff, because this is the Promises Fulfilled that Dale thought was the best of all of the Promises Fulfilled that he has seen across the spectrum, yearling sales, 2-year-old sales over the past year or so. Exciting dude, has that sort of Dale Romans long distance classic pedigree for us, and can't wait to see him up at Churchill Downs. Then finally, this is the project, the work in progress, Take Charge Omaha. She needs plenty of sort of ease it into it time. So we're waiting on her. She's still down on the farm and will be for a little while longer as she progresses along. On to Christophe Clement, where we've got a number of 2-year-olds. So Tommy, get your oxygen out. This is going to be a marathon session for you. Jenny's Angel, we'll start with our B Jersey filly.
We picked her up at OBS March, and she's super talented. Actually, that's a great photo right there of her. And unfortunately, we thought she'd be our first Saratoga starter. She did have a 4% lesion on a tendon, so we backed off. They just felt she was too talented to risk going on with it. And we're going to back off, and she's going to go down to Fair Hill. And hopefully we're going to see her in the fall or into the winter months. But, one of the most exciting 2-year-olds that we bought this year, Jeff.
One of the things you have to do with soft tissue stuff, no matter how minor, time. It's certainly more time consuming than, say, a concussive injury, a chip or a hairline or what have you. But if you see the talent, then you give them the time, because they'll take it if you don't give it to them. Leonora's Secret. This is a Bernardini filly that we bought as a yearling last summer at the Saratoga sale, Tommy.
Yeah, she's just a sweetheart. She's down at Kinsman. She's just picking up the pace with some easy breezes. Emily, who we deal with at Kinsman, has just been a huge fan of her. I think when we bought her at the sale, I think she sold out in a day. Very excited to get her back up. We're seeing what the female Bernardini line is starting to produce, and exciting to get this New York bred going. Probably she'll be another one to be, we'll look to see her in September and October.
Well, Liam's map has been good to our stable, of course, winning the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile with our good friend and partner Vinny Viola, St. Elias Stable. But Liam's map himself has been a tremendous stallion, and the Liam's map Sense of War is going to be going to Christophe Clement, a horse that is necessitating the long game.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're taking our time with him. I don't know if this photo really does him justice. I thought he was possibly one of the best looking yearlings we bought all last year. They're very excited. I know Jason stopped on his way through. The Clements have been up to visit a number of times. I think we're going to get rewarded in the long run here, and we're going to have a horse towards the end of the fall that could be a star. I mean, he does everything right. We're just giving him plenty of time to grow to that massive frame.
Moment's notice. You could have knocked me over with a feather, Tommy. Here we go. A first weekend entry from the Clements, which is not out of the realm of possibility, but on the dirt, and I'm more than ready. You gotta clue us in on what's going on here.
So this horse is just been, not that we didn't love him at the sale at OBS April. We did. We bought him from Randy Miles. He looks like Carson's Run. It was the same consigner. There was all a lot of mojo going in that the Clements wanted to be a part of him. He's bigger and stronger than Carson was at that same time, but he has not missed a beat. And if you would have told me, an OBS April horse is going to debut for the Clements on opening weekend, I'd say that would be surprising. But they've been nothing but positive about him. And every time you talk about all the horses in the stable, they say, moments of, I like that horse. I like that horse. And, it reminds me, who is it? Was it Valdemar? Valdemar Bahena? You say, I like that horse.
I like that horse. Yeah, exactly.
So, the fact that we're going to debut on dirt, I don't know if that'll be where he spends his career, whether he goes and tries the grass at some point. But Jeff, this particular horse, he's got Haynesfield on the dam side. He looks more like that Spikestown Haynesfield line than he does than a More Than Ready. So, very exciting. Obviously, we have a great partnership, and everybody's going to be out on Saturday for his debut. And I expect to run well. I know there's some toughies in there that have run already, but I don't think the Clements are looking to just walk him over there on opening day to get his doors blown off.
Good deal. Nelson Gate. This is now a gelding, and we'll be waiting on him a little bit.
Another Kitten's Joy. We were able to pick him up at Keeneland September last year, and I think that he's at Kinsman. Very excited the thought of having a New York bred as we move towards synthetic and grass year round down the line. But we're going to have to wait a little bit on him to get him to where we want to go. But he's been gelded. He's back training at Kinsman, and another one that I think you're going to see come in the fall in New York.
Rhyton is also with Christophe Clement, and also among a couple of others down at Bruce Jackson's.
Yeah, Rhyton is a Cantheros colt. We picked him up at Phasing Tipped in New York. He start back around the middle of the month at Bruce to get him going again. And all the early indications on him were positive. We had a little setback, but we're ready to get moving forward with him come middle of the month. And I know I sound like a broken record, but we should have a very powerful fall with a lot of these 2-year-olds coming north.
Yeah, one filly that might have a chance to make it is Garden of Grace. Make it, by the end of the summer. I mean, absolute end of the summer, end of the fall. Our Solomini filly that came out of the May sale, but she's doing super from what I understand.
Yeah, I would expect she will probably ship to the Clement barn at Belmont in the coming weeks. I think that now they've gotten everything settled where we have to shuffle all the horses at Saratoga, where you're limited to that 35 or 40 stalls. And, they really have the majority of horses that are running there. But our 2-year-olds, I think this horse, as well as we'll talk about the War Will later, both are about ready to ship and get started on the paces. And like you said, the end of the summer will be up to her. If she's able to, physically, she's been doing everything right. Mentally, she's been adjusting well. And it's exciting. Solomini is dominating the New York bred and the New York Stallion ranks right now.
Superpower is at the spa. Frosted colt on the grounds.
He's at Belmont Park.
I'm sorry. I thought he had breezed
Saratoga.
Oh, he switched. There you go.
We had two nice works. He he is a presence. That son of Frosted, when he got here, everybody said the same thing. He just has a presence about him. Beautiful horse. You know, we've had 2 breeds into him. He's down at Belmont now. And by the end of the summer, I think we have an outside shot at the end of the Saratoga meet with him.
Very good. On to the Great Chain. He can start back in training, and that's a good sign. That's a very good sign, Tom.
He was the most improved horse that we saw from the November/December Ocala event to the March and April event. It was amazing how much he developed and how much he moved forward. You know, a little bit of a hiccup, but I think for the most part, you know, he's back in training at Maya Comet in Kentucky, and he's a horse that, you know, looking back from that New York bred sale last fall, we're hoping that by the end of the year, that ends up being a very pivotal sale for us and all the horses that we bought there.
You know, the War of Will colt that we bought last year, Tommy, that's going to Christophe Clement. I'm sorry, the War of Will that we bought this year at the OBS sale. Just a lovely, lovely individual. And I think we're getting close.
Yeah, I think he's ready to come north as well. We picked him up from David McCathin at OBS April, and our good partner, good buddy Jim Politano came in on him with us as well. Listen, the War of Wills have been impressive. I saw one win the other day. I think it was at Ellis. Not surprising. He was an amazing horse himself on grass, on dirt, grade 1 winner on both. You know, we've got a couple. We're going to talk about both of them right now. But this guy that we got in April, a really nice looking horse, and he's about to come north, I would say, in the next week or 2.
All right, just follow up on that with Willpowered. That was the horse I was referring to that we bought as a yearling last year, who has been nothing short of Adonis from the perspective of all the people who've been around him.
Yeah, he is a stud. He is just an absolute gorgeous horse. Every single person that's been around him, the people who ride him, the people who care for him, he's just gorgeous. And that big frame, come with that big frame, we need to get those legs to develop a little more to be able to carry that. The Clements had him for about 3 weeks up here, and they just said, listen, he's gotta mature. We gotta let his legs mature to be able to pick up this massive frame. And you know, if he's not a star, we'll all be surprised, because he everything about him exudes class. And it's a bummer he won't be at Saratoga this summer, but you know, I'm hoping for many years to come he'll be at Saratoga with us.
All right. Thank you, Tommy. Take a breath, grab a cold drink of water, and we'll move on to a couple of other horses that are not trained by Christophe Clement, by Cherie DeVoe. We'll start off with Tavern Time. That's the alternation that we bought at the Fasig-Tipton, Maryland sale. This is a big, strong dude. Really kind of a fall type of starter. And I expect in Cherie's program, that's when we'll see him, maybe at Churchill Downs or at Keeneland. He has all the right parts, and he's on his way to Cherie this week or next. So he'll probably be at Ellis Park to begin with, possibly at Keeneland. Those are her 2 baby headquarters for the summer. The Authentic Dayanu, this is Joe, a horse that is now named Reagan's Wit.
Yep. David loves to name those horses after Reagan, and why not? So he's kind of come along pretty steadily. You know, when we got him, he was a little bit behind the horses that he came in with down at Doc Iserman's, but Doc gave him the Most Improved Player award, and I think he's starting to come along as well now that he's with Cherie. This horse has just an all-star pedigree on the dam side. Dam out of Sunday Break, who was a really influential Japanese stallion. Second dam out of Dynaformer. Third dam out of Nijinsky. So this is like real quality, long distance, longevity pedigree. And like a lot of the authentics, he's going to be a little bit later to develop. They're not quite as precocious as people thought, but he's, you know, stacked physically, great female pedigree, and he's coming along.
I will say probably towards the end of the summer with him. That's my guess. And I think it'll be at Ellis. That's my guess as well, too. On to Castle Run. This is our Daredevil. He was a horse that really captured the imagination of a lot of partners very quickly, because he sold out pretty quickly. And he's with Cherie as well, too, Joe.
Yeah, and then he's, you know, we remember seeing him up close at the sale. Like, he is a powerhouse horse and a little headstrong. You know what I mean? He has, it takes a little reining in, but he's got plenty of speed. He actually, they don't want him to go quite as fast this early, which is a good problem to have. Just worked his first half mile over the weekend, went in 48 flat, which I think was fourth or so out of 58 works at the distance. He went 9-4 at the Breeze show, so you know he's got speed. It really just is about harnessing the mental part for him and getting him to be able to show that on the racetrack for a long period of time. But the talent is undeniably there.
Well, the entries start to pile up as we get into this portion of the summer, and we got some, you know, developing news, some breaking news this morning with Home First. Jason Blewett, she's going next Monday at Ellis. Jason, are you there? Jason, you may be muted. Can I hear you now? Can you hear me now? Well, maybe not. Okay, so we're having some issues with Jason.
Oh, good. I'm back. I wasn't sure if that was me or you. You completely dropped off. I love this filly. Long, scopy, leggy. I think Cherie is going to be just a perfect fit for her. Cherie does not, you know, it's not just about the one first out race with Cherie. It's about the long game. And I think that's going to be a match made in heaven. And I'm just stoked to hear where we've entered her and ready to get it underway next Monday at the old Pea Patch with Home First.
Yes, and Ellis Park. Can you hear me okay, Jason? I know I dropped out for a second.
Yep.
Ellis Park has become a very, very important proving ground for 2-year-olds. I know we all love seeing him at Del Mar and at Saratoga, but this has become an important, increasingly important proving ground. So I'm excited to see what she can do going 7/8 next Monday. On to Start to Win. This was the upstart that everyone fell in love with at the sale down at OBS. He has lived up to his billing thus far. Cherie can be a really tough grader when it comes to these breezes, but he's had a number of them under his belt. I think he's going to get rolling in August, maybe even sooner. He's getting fairly close, and Cherie DeVoe is very, very excited about him thus far. And so you love it when that kind of, you know, when what you liked at the sale just is a seamless transition into the horse that they're breezing and developing into right now. On to Brad Cox with a couple of horses. The Into Mischief, Ever So Clever. He's got a name now, Lion of Justice. He's a big, grand-looking guy who I saw on the racetrack again over the weekend. He was almost ready to be entered. Then he had a little bit of a skin rash that set him back a little bit, so they weren't able to breeze him. But Brad says he's okay. I would expect that you'll see him at Ellis, not at Saratoga to begin with. But Brad, you know, Brad sort of is another very tough grader. If he thought that the horse couldn't run, he'd tell me, but that's not the case. He says he's kind of middle of the pack right now, but he also said as a qualifier, you know, that's before he runs. If he runs and starts learning, getting it, you know, developing beyond that, who knows how good he can be. So that's the Into Mischief, Ever So Clever, now named Lion of Justice. On to Rebel Moon. Tall horse. That's the thing you have to say about him. I think the word giraffe has been used a couple of times. That's going to be the thing that keeps him most likely plodding along at a steady pace as opposed to a precocious pace. Maybe late August, I would think at the earliest. Nice and steady work so far. He's showing talent, but he's just he's a horse that's growing like a weed. So Rebel Moon probably towards the latter part of the summer. Then on to the Street Sense colt out of Owlette that we bought in October. The partnership made a decision to experiment with Chad Brown. So we're going to have a horse with Chad Brown this year with just one horse, just sort of a reasonable experiment. And we're still in evaluation mode with the Street Sense colt out of the mare Owlette, not named yet. Finally, with Brad, we had a colt by Tapit out of a mare by the name of Gamble's Ghost, who is taking some time off at Windstar due to some bone bruising. He required the time off. He really wasn't making the same impression in the breezes at the racetrack at Keeneland that he had down at the farm at Doc Eisenman's. So well regarded, thought to be one of the top in his class. And so when you find something that's amiss, and it's not a deal breaker by any stretch of the imagination, well, great. Give him the time and give him the opportunity to come back and be the horse that we believe it can be. On to Medalia. This is another horse that's been at Doc Eisman's, still at Doc Eisman's, and Joe Bianca. This is a filly that we knew well when we bought her. We knew we might have to take some additional time due to pedigree and just sort of who she was an individual. But I think there's great opportunity here.
Yeah, I mean, this was never going to be a June 2-year-old starter, with the pedigree being by Medalia d'Oro, later developing pedigree, especially on the female side of the page. But also she wasn't perfect conformationally when we got her. One of the reasons we got her at the price that we did. So she was always going to take some time to develop, mature, fill out physically. We backed off a little bit earlier in the spring because of a suspensory flare up, but she's back in action now at Doc Eisman's. But yeah, we're just going to bring her along slowly. You don't want to rush these things along and then have a big time injury and then it's all she wrote. She's coming along, and I think she'll be a nice fall into early 2025 starter.
Very good. And we'll finish off our 49 2-year-olds. We've gone at a good clip, and I appreciate everybody, following the game plan here. Pascaline. This is a horse that came very much like Stretch Ride out of a European Breeze Up show. And Tom Bellhouse, Arno has been very happy with him thus far.
He really has, Jeff. This horse hasn't missed a beat since coming to America. It's the same path that we took last year with our old friend Kip Elzer being on the ground at a sale in the European Breeze Up and bringing over. Same thing that we did with Stretch Ride. And so far, the results have been great. It is more of an American pedigree being by Upstart. And as Cagliostro and a bunch of the other upstarts that we're seeing, nothing but anything, the horses are just doing superb. And I think Upstart, I think he stands at Airdrie Stud. I think he is in the makings of being a star and in that price range. And, we like this horse a lot. And, Arno Delacour has been a wonderful addition to the West Point training staff. And, I think you're going to just see more and more as he gets a few more horses, Independence Ave, and now this horse. You'll get to see what he can do with some of these horses for us. Obviously, Bassanio being another.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you to the team for, as I said, going through the process of each and every one of these 2-year-olds, evaluating, giving a projection, maybe if they're going to be starting soon or later or in the fall. That's really what we decided to do last year when we put together this for the first time. And I think the second time was even better. Thanks to everybody on the team. We do have a few minutes. If people want to ask questions, you can chat them, you can Q&A them, and somebody gave me a Q&A question. Brian Koski wants to know, can you explain why some of the common 2-year-old injuries occur, such as buck shins? You want to handle that one, Tom, or do you want me to handle it?
Yeah, no, listen, when the horse comes to a trainer and as they basically we're raising the intensity as the season goes on. It's almost like you start with a preseason with a professional athlete, and as the season goes on, the intensity raises, and it goes from galloping to a short breeze, to a longer breeze, to a breeze in company. As every time you ask an athlete to do something, you're stressing them. And during that process, occasionally something like inflammation of a shin with a young horse, it's not unlikely because they haven't built up the foundation of the concussion that builds up that bone density and makes it where the strength of that bone, like you don't see shins usually in older horses. You see it mostly with baby horses who haven't built up that concussion as of yet.
It's a way of Mother Nature saying slow down too, right, as well, Brian. And it's a tried and true method. It's frustrating from time to time, but in the end, I can't tell you the number of horses that we'd had to slow down for shins in particular, because that's a common ailment that end up being superstars. It's just one of those things. Another question comes from Stephen Rosen. Missed the first half. Any update on the on Langdon post-surgery? All good, Stephen. I think, Jason, we're going to see him start to ship north relatively soon. I'd say relatively. Would that be fair?
Yeah. Perhaps a few more weeks down in Ocala at Dr. Eisenman's, and then I could see him shipping to Fairhill. And again, Stephen, you missed it, but when I was at Fairhill about a month and a half ago, my wife and I spent a couple of nights in Maryland. went out to the training center there unsolicited. The rider that got on Langdon for only a couple of mornings before we sent them back to Ocala came up to me and said, "Hey, do you think you guys will send that Astern colt back to me?" I mean, that's how nice of an impression that horse made on everybody that was in his area, which was great to hear. He'll be worth the wait. He will.
Very good. Got a question from one of the War of Will Harmony Victory partners, Tommy, and this is just a common theme. People can, jump on this call and they can be a little late, miss a horse. Give me a quick summary of when you think this horse will start, because he has breezed a couple of times already and, has a chance to make some noise at some point this summer.
Yeah, assuming he gets up to Christoph in the next week or two, I think, we're up right against it. Does he make the end of Saratoga, or is he going to be a September horse? But the one thing about Saratoga, starting Thursday, the clock starts. It's like the old egg timer or the old Sansa hourglass. You flip it over, and we're under the gun for those 7 weeks to get horses to the races. But I would say if he gets up here the way it's planned, that, it'd be close whether he makes the end of the meet or it'll be right in September.
All right, very good. Hope we answered the question for the partner that emailed in to Jeff Lowe. Steve Rosen says, thanks, guys. And I also wanted to mention one other item in terms of injuries to horses, 2-year-olds. Just remember that this is, for most of these guys and gals, every time they do something new, that's the first iteration that they've ever done that thing. Whether it's they've never visited the starting gate, or if they've gone up to this particular training facility and gone on to Saratoga or gone on to Ellis Park. Sometimes the shift in training surfaces, because all these are organic surfaces, will sometimes add to the propensity towards a little bit of a setback, an injury setback. So Brian Koski, that's an additional piece of information for you. I'm checking all the questions, the chats, the Q&As, anybody raising their hand to ask a question, and seeing none, and knowing we've already gone on for about 50 minutes, which has been great. And we've had more than 75 people on this call, just a phenomenal reception. Just know that we get it. Everybody wants to see their 2-year-old get rolling here. And as you progress through the summer and these summer meets, we're going to keep rolling with the ones that are ready to go and into the fall. When your horse starts, it has generally no bearing on how good they're going to be. It's just when Mother Nature is telling the trainer it's time to go. So for the team, I say thank you to everybody for joining us on this special call. I guess we'll do it again next year about this time. But in the meantime, enjoy opening day at Saratoga. Enjoy all that can be appreciated at the spa. Take care, everybody.